Alright. Now for audio encoding, specifically multi-track audio encoding, which, man, it pissed me off so much initially until I finally figured out the right way to do it. I figured out a different way to do it, but then FFmpeg has a bad habit of when things are not specified. Sometimes it does, it's like, oh, hey, this is what the input is. Okay, based on that, I'll do this. Sometimes it's good at that. Sometimes it's good at that. Not with audio. At least not all aspects of audio. Instead, it'll be like, oh, hey, the last thing you told me to do, I'm just going to apply that to everything. So, when you've got, say, 7.1, 5.1, and then stereos and stereo tracks, it'll be like, oh, last one was stereo. I'm going to make everything stereo then, including the 7.1, 5.1. It's like, no, 7.1, 5.1, I want to stay that. I want to stay that way. Initially, what I did is I would actually have these be multiple files. I would do the stereo in one file, the 7.1 one file, 5.1 in another file. And then I just mux it all together later. Real pain to do that. Not the right way to do it. Fortunately, I finally learned that it is possible to tell FFmpeg, hey, this audio stream, this is the number of channels. But in order to be truly effective there, that means I need to know the number of channels for an arbitrary audio stream. I also need to be able to set the bitrate individually, because the bitrate for a stereo audio stream is going to be different than a 7.1 or 5.1. Because, you don't want 5.1 constrained to 96 kilobit. That's not enough. And that's what stereo is typically going to be in a opus. But I figured it out, and I'm going to show you. There it is. This and this are the main things, and this is also important. The rest of it, don't worry about. But I should also explain, this is the multi-track script that I use for AV1, which some things are definitely different. For example, now instead of having the FFmpeg call be later in its own function, no, I'm calling it directly right here. And also then all this stuff for building up the commands, the parameters, that is how I'm not using custom function where it all is in, like here, where it's like, oh, I'm just calling that. Nope, can't do it. Because I need to be able to edit this directly. All right. So, yes, we'll start here. So this, and by the way, for reference, this is the configuration stuff for the matrix, because that has total of 5 different audio tracks, 0 through 4. 3, as the metadata setting here indicates, 3 commentary, or 4 commentaries. I should actually check on that. Because it might be that last one is still a commentary, but it's like, it's just the composer's music, but the composer's also talking about it. I don't know. Maybe that should be isolated score. Doesn't really matter. But the first, so this is the full commands. So I'm telling it, hey, mapping in FFmpeg is just saying, okay, this is from the first file, first input 0. We're only working with one input, so it's going to be 0 all the time. Grab an audio track, an audio stream, specifically the first one, second one, third one, fourth one. Because remember, FFmpeg starts counting at 0. If it isn't there, then skip it. That's what the question mark is saying. There's always going to be one audio track there, so we don't need to have the question mark there. Okay, so what's the next part? Well, this is setting. Oh, I should also mention, I mentioned this previously, carets will escape in batch files. So what this is escaping here at the end of the line is it's actually escaping the line break. So FFmpeg will see this all as one line, which is what FFmpeg means. If you try to have portions of the FFmpeg command in a variable, and I've done this before, it gets wonky, which is another reason to do it this way, where it's just, nope, it's all just written there. Okay, so this next portion here, A is for setting the number of audio channels, okay? And why you need to say AC and then A, as opposed, because you don't have multiple video channels. You don't, well, not often. Technically you can't have multiple video streams in one file, but that's still, it would not make any sense here. Contextually, AC should just always be the audio. For the first stream. And this is very important, though. This is the first stream of the output file, okay? So let me try doing it. It's wonky. Oh, here. I do it from here. This will work. Okay. This refers to the inputs, okay? All this is only referring to outputs, okay? So you can have, because it might be you know what? I don't want these two inputs. Okay, that's fine. This now needs to be 1, that now needs to be 2. Because it's the number of audio channels for the second audio track in the output, all right? But it's still the fourth input stream, okay? So it is if you're going to be doing that, that's fine. Go ahead and do it where you're only picking certain tracks, but you need to make sure that the IDs on this side of the map, you need to make sure that those are correct to the outputs. And it isn't just going to be there. It would also be here for setting what the codec should be, for setting the bit rate, and for setting the titles. Okay? It's all got to be changed there. All right. So set the audio channels. Okay, well, how do we know what the audio channels are? That's where these functions come in, which I'm pretty sure I've shown both of these previously because they were relevant for the volume to text script. Very simply, this is odd channel is a custom function I wrote that finds out, okay, how many audio channels are there in a given stream. Mono is 1, stereo is 2, 5.1 is 6, because it's 5 main speakers, and then the 0.1 is subwoofer, as I recall. Or LFE, you'll see it described as well. 7.1 is total of 8, 7 main speakers, 1 subwoofer. Pretty sure it's... No, it is that. So yeah, and that's what this is doing, is it's saying store the number of channels to this chan 0, because the 0 stream, store it to that variable name, and this is just identifying what the stream is. So in theory, I could do B here instead, and it'll still pull the second audio stream because that one is 1. I should also mention that I will sometimes do this. Chan 0D equals 6. That I do a fair amount, because, I've mentioned this before, Jellyfin has a weird quirk with AV1 and more audio channels than your setup supports. I have a 5.1 audio system. It is not 7.1. So if I have a movie that is 7.1, or television, I actually do have some television shows that are 7.1, and the video is encoded in AV1, Jellyfin is like, okay, I'll downmix that for you from 7.1 to 5.1. I'm also going to transcode the video. I don't want to do that. I can't get around that, though. Well, not on the Jellyfin side. Instead, what I do is I'm like, okay, I'll have FFmpeg do the downmixing, which is why it's chan 0D for downmixed. And then down here, that would look like this way. I'm still referencing that same, it's usually the first track. That same first track, I still wanted to be that, but now I'm looking at the second output stream. Number of channels, D. That needs to be 1. That needs to be 1. All these would need to be adjusted, by the way. And by the way, I'm pretty sure that my Matrix Blu-ray is actually, it's 5.1. So I wouldn't have to do it there, but I have no issue showing you what it would look like here. Technically, I should also... Oh, wait. I also just realized I'm doing this wrong. There. I'll explain that in a little bit. There. And... Oh, yeah. When you're not setting the... FFmpeg will just inherit whatever the previous metadata was. So this track would normally be labeled surround 7.1. That's the hypothetical we're going with. I don't need to set that. That's fine to inherit. But this one I'm changing to 5.1. The thing is, it's originally the 7.1 track. So I do need to tell it 5.1. I can do that here, or I can do it in the run script, which I just realized that is another thing I need to do. You know what? I'm going to take a moment to make sure I don't forget. So I need a video compare video. I need a muxing, muxing video, which I'm naming it for what the actual program is I do that with. Subtitle edit video. I need a run video as well, run script video. All right, so I've just made up the folders. That'll help me remember. But I have done some fancy stuff in what I call a run script, which it's just to run through like an entire series or multiple movies, just points in different directions. But I have also set stuff up in there so that I can, at that stage, rename the audio tracks and even subtitle tracks. I will also talk about subtitle tracks in this as well. But in this video, I mean. But part of the renaming of the audio tracks, it will actually look to see what is I already talked about this actually in the volume detect script. Because that is also a variant of a run script. That's only touching audio. I now only want this being done in the video run script. And so it's after, it will change the metadata after what is set here. And this can be, for movies, it'll mostly be because it'll read out and be like, oh, this is a 5.1. Okay, I'm going to set it to surround 5.1. Oh, this is 7.1. I'm going to set that to surround 7.1. But it is also useful for television. FreeRun doesn't have any commentaries, at least not on that. But TNG does. The Twilight Zone, oh my god. When I went through the Blu-rays of that, almost every episode of the Twilight Zone, it's like 160 episodes, has a commentary. Many of them have two. Some also have isolated scores. I can't go through and name all that in one script. Like this, in this script. But in a run script, I can have it where it'll be like, okay, this episode, we name this track to say it's a commentary by this person. So awesome. That I figured out how to do that. Anyway, back to this. So I also need to do that. I will explain this, and I've explained it before, but I will explain it again. I prefer to set the 5.1 to the first track. This is so that I can also set it to be the default and to be the forced track even, but default track, I can do that. In fact, even down here it says set the disposition of the first audio stream needs to be as the default. So that way, yes, there's 7.1 in there. Alright, because I still want to keep that. Especially because if I'm down mixing from the 7.1, I want to keep the 7.1 then. I want to keep that as a reference. Although I actually do have one thing was like, oh, awesome. 7.1, 5.1 were both lossless. So it's like, okay, I'll just keep the 5.1. I don't need 7.1 at all. But I like having it first because that also helps making sure that, because sometimes the default track isn't paid attention to. It's just like, oh yeah, whatever the first stream is. Unfortunately, there was also a bug in the Jellyfin Roku app where if it sees both 5.1 and 7.1, even if the 7.1 is not the default, 5.1 is, and I tell it, hey, play the 5.1, like manually, I tell it in the app, play the 5.1, it'll still grab the 7.1 and downmix. It's like, fortunately, that is only a bug in the latest, okay, it's only a bug in the Jellyfin Roku app that's 3 point anything, okay? Maybe it has been fixed since the last time I looked. It has been some months. There is also a Jellyfin Legacy app on Roku. It does not have this bug at all. So it will, if I tell it play the 5.1, it just plays 5.1. Great, awesome, we're good. It's annoying that I have to remember to do that, but fortunately, most of my collection, it's going to be 5.1 or lower. Some things are going to be 7.1, especially a lot of 4Ks because they like doing Dolby Atmos, which, yes, Atmos is different than normal 7.1, but it's encoded on the disc as 7.1. So, yeah, you can, it can be looked at like that by FFmpeg. Okay, so that addresses that. And now to explain this, so all this does is it will, again, create the variable rate 0 or 0D. It then takes the number of channels, in this case 6, in this case it could be 8 because of 7.1, in these it'll mostly be stereo, and then I can change what the default bitrate should be. Well, what the bitrate should be, it just does the math for me. If it's 0 and 0 like this, it's just taking the defaults, which would be the same as 96 and 64, okay? But maybe I wanted to be, you know what, I want the pairs, the stereo pairs, so that's the left and right speakers, whether it's front, center, or rear. Maybe I want them to have additional, like more bitrate there. It's a total bitrate kind of thing, okay? That just how much is allowed. The Opus encoder is just going to balance things out, but this is just for saying what the total allowed bitrate is for the audio. So I might want to do that, and that's how I would do it. But then we've got these different variables set: chan 0, chan 0D, chan 1, rate 0, rate 0D, rate 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they're called up down here. And again, these are going to match, the rate IDs, the chan IDs are going to match what we have in map. Okay? Those are what will match, because those are inputs. Those are based on the inputs, not the outputs. Okay. So I have already talked some about the volume detect. That's a different video. For how I can go in and find out what the maximum audio is for a video file. But then also how to apply it across like a series. So it's something that's going to vary from one file to the next. So I'm trying to use one script. I can't adjust the volume within that one script because it might not be correct to apply that to everything. Okay, so like in this case, I want to undo all those. Okay. So it's the matrix. I don't remember exactly what it is for the volume, but maybe it's the main 5.1, maybe that's good. That's going up to 0 dB. That's how I want that to be. Cool. But the commentary tracks might be at like -7. That's actually very real, and I'm not entirely sure why, so it is great, now I gotta turn it up when I'm going to that. I think it's in part because what they do for commentary tracks, for one thing, they make them stereo, so they downmix it down to stereo. Fine. But then also, whenever somebody's talking, they are ducking, they're reducing the audio volume for the movie audio. And that's called ducking. And that makes sense, but it's not then re-leveled, it's not then remixed overall such that you don't need to change the volume if you are watching that and then go back to the main film. So, how do I adjust that? How do I fix that? In here. So, in this script, which it's just single audio track, I just use -AF, okay? To just say, hey, use an audio filter. Here, it's a little different. It's filter A to audio, to say audio. I'm applying an audio filter to this output stream. It's very important. It's output streams. Okay, because it's not applying it to the inputs, it's applying it to the outputs. So, for this, let's say, as I said, the first one, that's fine, that's great. So I don't need to change that one. No audio filter applied to the first track. But let's say that the others do want it. And you do need the space there. Okay, you do need space to separate them. So it's like, okay, track 1 is going to need it, track 2, track 3, and track 4 are all going to need it. Maybe that first commentary, it needs to be amped by 6. Second one by 7. Third one might be only 4. And then maybe this composer one is 2. Okay? That's all it takes. That will now apply a volume increase of 6 decibels to the second audio track, ID1, 7 to ID2, 4 to ID3, and 2 to ID4. And that's it, because those are all separate. Zero's the first track, that's left alone. No problem. So yeah, it's really nice. I'm so glad I figured that out. Oh man, it's so helpful. And it's set to that, it gets called in here, and it works. It's just happy. It makes me happy. So yeah, and that's how. You know what? Yeah, I think it makes sense to just go. Yep, okay. So I do want to talk about subtitle naming, and now let's just look at, this is what I put together for Freewin. Okay, so it only has 2 audio tracks, so I just get rid of the ones I don't need here. In the previous video, I was talking about how, yeah, noise normalization at 4, SIOD at 1. CF of 4 of 40, preset of 2. I don't do any of the audio filtering here because it's not appropriate to do here. It can vary from episode to episode. You can see I am setting the the first audio track to be named English dub and the second to be named Japanese. The English dub is also 5.1, by the way, while the Japanese is stereo. But now it's okay, it also has subtitle tracks in there. And they're actually, okay. Yeah, so it's also the order is different. So it had, first one is English for everything. Like, it's every word being said, it has subtitle in English. And the second subtitle track was just the forced stuff, so the translations. So, like, they like putting some Japanese up here, like a number of years since Himmel's death, and also says the location. That's put up here. But it's like, it's Japanese, I can't read it except for the 29, because they're using the Arabic numbers. So they force a subtitle to be shown here of what the translation is. Cool. I want that. That's the second track on the disc. Well, I want it to be first. Because that's the whole, like, this way the first subtitle track goes with the first audio track. The second audio track and second subtitle track go together. So now, I just flip them. So you can see here, that's pointing to 1. So that's the second track. Nope. Because I'm naming it first in the command here, FFmpeg puts it first. Okay? Same thing with audio. If you wanted to shuffle those around, you can do that. And I have it set to name translation original. I'll explain why it's original in a little bit. And English original. So that's the originals off of the disc. That's what it is. But I do need to point out, kind of was saying this earlier, but I'll point it out again because it's very important. The metadata, setting the metadata, that's an output side thing, not input. Okay? So these are inputs. So I'm saying, hey, take the second subtitle input first. So I'm naming it first, and the first one second. But after that, nope. First subtitle track that comes out, that's the translation. Second one is the English. Okay? And then you can see here, it's being told to just copy the subtitles over directly. Don't change the codec, just keep it. And you can see that here as well, but this is set to just whatever the subtitle track is, pull that over. Well, all of them, and all of them. It's just if they exist, but it's not being specific, so it pulls all of them. Sometimes you will want to do this stuff, even when it's all English, because I don't think this is the case with the Matrix, but I do know some. They also put the commentaries. They also make subtitle tracks out of them, so you can like have the regular audio playing for the movie, but then you get the commentary track in text there as well. There's also text commentaries where it's not even there's no spoken version of it. It's just like, oh yeah, here's this, and I think Terminator 2 has this. And it's kind of neat because it's been a while since I looked at it, but it'll be like, oh yeah, look over here, and draws a box over there. So it's like you do see neat stuff like that. But anyway. You might be doing this for more than stuff where it's like just different languages. Okay, so why am I saying original? Well, the bulk of this is going to be concerned with in a different video, but I've mentioned previously, and so I'm just need to explain it again. Streaming devices do not support decoding and playing multiple video streams at the same time. Excuse me. That is a requirement for Blu-ray, and I believe it's also a requirement for DVD, but definitely for Blu-ray. So the way the subtitle tracks work on a Blu-ray is they're literally just images. Okay, most of it is transparent. It's just like, stick this on top. Okay, kind of like the photon noise as well, the film grain stuff, kind of like that. Except this is very intentional. So it's like, boom, just put that on top. And it's going to be losslessly applied. You can burn in subtitles. I prefer not to, but put that on. Roku has no idea how to do that. It only works on one video stream at a time. So Jellyfin will be like, and other things as well. I assume Plex is going to do the same thing, because it's a hardware limitation of the Roku, of the Fire Stick, of the whatever. It's a hardware limitation. So it will burn that on there. If it is image-based, I have it in my process, and I had to do it for FreeRAM, and I'll do it for other things in the future, where I will go through, and I have an application, found an application, that will apply optical character recognition to take those images and make text-based subtitles. Streaming sticks work with that. it takes in and just is like, okay, I just need to render this text on the screen. Okay. So that's why this is original, because this is the original image-based subtitles. I will be putting in later, after I make the text-based ones, I will be muxing those in later. Those are different videos. Don't worry, I'll get to them. But those are handled later. So that's why these are named original. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else to mention with that. Not really, because, I mean, there's the concept of forcing subtitles. That is going to be taken care of elsewhere. As in a different video. Will be handled in a different video. Did just notice one thing that I guess maybe I should mention. Is that also the case here? I just don't remember. Okay. You might have spotted it here. I don't think you would have spotted it in the other video. Even though it belongs in the other video, I'll still mention it here. And then I'll stop. So, setting the parameters for SVT AV1 HDR, you notice I have this one, SCD equals 0. And the reason I have that first one is that way this can always start with a... just open that up and put a colon there, because that's how you separate one parameter to the next. What is SCD? It is currently an active but does nothing parameter. It stands for scene change detection, which they say AV1 doesn't actually benefit from this. Older codecs do. I don't know if it's true that AV1 doesn't benefit from it, but the idea there is if a scene suddenly changes, stop using this if you get an iframe, the reference frame that's in scene A, but then you go to scene B before you would naturally reach the next iframe, the next reference frame. Scene change detection is nope, scene change, stick in a new reference frame. So it will help with compression, because now you don't need as much data to say, hey, the frame is completely different now. But as I said, supposedly it's not necessary, but I got it turned on anyway. If they ever enable the feature, then it'll be there, it'll be ready. But yeah, I forgot to mention that before, because it's just always then it serves as that 0, so then I can do n and n plus 1 for the parameters. Which, because I need that colon. The colon separates them. I need something before the first colon, though. Alright, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else to... Oh, yeah, I guess technically also the mapping family stuff, which, in theory, I can fix problems. It's weird though, and I don't think it's worth it, but I keep the documentation here. So sometimes mono, that's common. Stereo, that's common. 5.1, that's common. 7.1, that's common. They can still be a little wonky. Like I've actually seen a 5.1 where it didn't say front left and right and then rear left and right. It was front left and right and then center left and right. It's like, why not rear? Anyway. But I've also got some where it's 3.0 or 3.1 where it's left, right, center subwoofer. That's not common. 4.1. Or 4.0. That can even be left, right, center, front, center, rear. 6.1. Left, right, well, front, left, right, subwoofer, center, front, center, then rear, left, right, and rear, center. I've seen 6.1. Opus doesn't like those. Okay? So that's where this mapping family comes in. Where Opus will try to, figure that out, but it can get it wrong. Mapping family, that allows you to basically say, hey, no, I'm going to tell you what to do. It doesn't work that well, though. It's really wonky, because you need to set the channel layout. You need to tell it that for the specific stream. And then, it's X, like 5.1. Then you need to tell it that the mapping family for that stream is 255. That's saying, hey, it's completely custom. Okay? Unfortunately, though, when I tried experimenting with this, it kept wanting to fall back to the common ones, the mono, stereo, 5.17. So it doesn't really work. But it still is maybe at one point it'll work, maybe at one point I'll bother trying to figure it out. For now, no, I'll just remix it to 5.1 or 7.1 or whatever it is that's most appropriate. I'll just do that. And I suggest that's what you do as well, purely as I don't know if it's worth trying to get this working correctly. But, I mean, hey, that's up to you. If you want to do it, please do it. That's why it's there. That's why the documentation is there. All right. That should be it. So, yeah. I will see you next time.